Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Chris Ashley with Passion for the Wild and Wonderful. Today what I want to go over is some of the tricks or techniques that I've used to quiet down my ladder sticks, as well as also just some general maintenance or upkeep that I do on them so that I can have them for years to come. Now, one of the things I want to point out is also that the tip I'm going to, or a couple of the tips that I'm going to share with you today, is my very bottom stick with these single ladder stick sections that piece together is a lot of the supporting weight. And what I've ran into, as you can maybe see, is this bar is in the upward direction and should be really perpendicular to the tube and flat. And what I've ran into is with their existing hardware that was provided originally by the supplier is just a bolt and a nut. And what I've ran into is when it has all that supporting weight from the sticks and the climber, it ends up pulling the head of that bolt in and letting this bracket, this V bracket that rests up against the tree to bend up. And when that does, that starts making this flex. It sets it up for more noise and starts weakening that tube to where that bolt head can get pulled all the way in. So I'm going to go over also with you today what it is that I do to address these issues and quiet these sticks down. So as I mentioned, these sticks only came with a single bolt and single nut. And that sets it up to where that bolt head is very small and it's very susceptible to being drawn into that square tubing and to collapse it some and make it to where that loosens up a little bit and sets that V bracket up to pivot, and I get a lot of squeak there. So me personally, knowing this issue going forward, if I was to buy these kinds of sticks again that piece together to go up through the tree versus steps that are maybe separated and individually strapped to the tree so they're not interconnected, I would go ahead and follow the hardware that I'm recommending today when I first go to get them put out versus doing it later. So I've already loosened this up, and again, as I said, just a single bolt and a nut, and I'll tell you what I ended up doing. So I ended up going to the hardware store and I ended up getting some grade, I think it's grade 5 bolts, and what I did have was 2.5 inch, and since I was going to go ahead and be adding some additional washers, both metal washers as well as a nylon washer, I went ahead and upped it to 2 3/4 inch. So what I end up getting also is flat washers, fender washers, nylon washers, and nylon lock nuts. And the way I do it now is I'll do a standard flat washer on top, followed by the fender washer. Now the whole idea with this combination is I'm wanting to try to spread out that force and provide more surface area to prevent that head of that bolt from potentially being drawn down into the tubing. And now I've got a pretty large surface area for it to distribute that force across. So what I do then is I'll go ahead and run that down through, and then I have my nylon washer that I'll put in. And that lets this be set to where that V bracket, and what I've seen generally when I'm climbing, is that V bracket wants to pivot potentially if I don't have it really good and torqued, or if it starts drawing that bolt head through. And that's where I can get the metal on metal. I really don't see my bolt twisting to where I'm worried about the fender washer contacting the tube. And the same goes on the back side. I'm not worried about what I do then is a flat washer and then the nylon nut. I'm not worried really about it pivoting or generating much noise either. That has not been the experience that I've had or history with it where the squeaks occur. So what I'll do is put that hardware together. It's already to where it's not squeaking or making any noise. I'll torque that down, and then now it's locked. Now what you'll see though is when I'm done is that hardware is very bright and shiny. And one of the things I want to do is make sure I dull it down. So this is a great time as well that I go ahead and I remove my straps. I inspect them, make sure they're in good shape. I've already removed them just so they're not in the way as I'm doing this video. I'll torque this down, and then what I'll do is just take a wire brush and I'll go over any of these places where I see any rust. Now, a lot of the areas I see are here where they're interconnected and the metal to metal rubs and chips off the paint. Also too, in the joints where the tubes are connected and there's a weld bead, I see those areas of generally having corrosion build up as well. I'll go through and hit that with all the wire brush, And then what I'll do is just get some general paint from your local hardware, let's say. A few different things to consider. In this case here, I like to get a paint that's both paint and primer base with it. So I've got two here that I'm using. One's a Krylon Fusion all-in-one paint and primer satin brown. And then I have another Krylon Color Max paint and primer that's a matte deep gray. For me, at least, for here in West Virginia, what I found on the trees that I use in West Virginia and Ohio is the gray really helps to hide the ladder sticks going up and down the trees. If I do too much of black or too much of the brown, it really sticks out. So what I like to do is do a base coat, or where I do my touch-ups, in the gray, and then I'll lightly go over and just dab or hit it with a little bit of the brown just to help break that solid gray up just a little bit. And then what I've done here now is this one is already been completed. So I've already torqued it down. You can see it's nice and solid. I haven't had to worry about it pulling the head in at all. The washer has got it nice and close and tight, and I'll show you here. So you can see that it's nice and flush. It hasn't drawn it in at all. This is good and tight. It's also now not as bright. It's been daubed down nicely, all the hardware. And what I've done is went through anywhere where there was any kind of corrosion. As I said, wire brushed it and cleaned it up. So now this stick is set up to give me several more years of use that I don't have to worry about a step potentially rusting or corroding out at the weld or having any other issues. I've also quieted it down from just that pivot point. However, one of the things that I found as well on these sticks that are interconnected to make the ladder stick section up the tree is I seem to get a lot of noise around the connection point from where this male end, let's say, inserts up into the female end of the next receiving stick. So a little thing that I've done that I think really has helped to knock it down and quiet it is to just simply take some electrical tape, which just really gives me a thin rubber-like material that I can then go ahead and start wrapping it at the top. I don't overlap it with itself too much, but I'm able to go all the way down this tube to where I know is going to be the maximum point that the other end would go down. Have that nice and snug, wrapped tight, and then able to go ahead and take the other one with the female end, slide it over, very carefully slide it, trying not to pinch down the tape. And once I'm down, I can then go ahead and take a screwdriver, run it through the hole to break through the tape. I can also take my pin that connects the two sections and keeps them pinned together, run a thin wrap of electrical tape over it, and all you can hear there on the ground, I have no more of the metal-to-metal squeak or shakes from it. And this is now nice and solid as well by having the fender washer combination with the flat washer, so that doesn't draw in, and the nylon washer in between. So that's just a couple of the tricks that I've learned with these style of sticks that are interconnected to help quiet it down, and also just some of the things that I go through. And like I said, one of the big things too is I don't like to leave my sticks on a tree for more than a year or two at most. Combination of one, at the end of the season, one of the things that I do is I go to all my sticks. If it's the year I'm going to leave them up, I'll go ahead and loosen the straps up just a little bit to allow for growth of the tree. And then if it is a year that I'm taking them down, I go ahead and make sure and pull all the straps, check them out, make sure they're not frayed. You can go online real cheap or reasonably priced and cheap to buy replacement straps for these, and make sure that they're all in good condition, they're not heavily frayed, that the buckles work well, and then have myself set up to where when I go back in and hang the replacements or hang the refurbished sticks, I know that I've got them good for the next year or two, and I don't have to worry about the squeaks. So guys, I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please like the video, please subscribe to the channel, ring that bell, and I'll be bringing you more content. I hope that you get out and enjoy the outdoors, and I wish you good luck. My name's Chris Ashley, and this is Passion for the Wild and Wonderful.